Shalom and welcome to another Petacombo podcast from Be'abidan, teaching Noahide Judaism for Messianic Hebrews. It is Thursday, the 17th of April, 2025, Holy Thursday in Holy Week, and it is also the 19th of Nisan on the Hebrew calendar, and we're going to look at the events of Holy Week for Messianic Hebrews, for Messianic Noahides. On this particular show, we're looking at the Gospels, the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, in a concordant reading of all of them. A concordant reading, how do you read them in a way which shows the whole story in sequence and not missing any of the details which have been provided in different Gospels? Generally, Matthew, Mark, and Luke agree. And John is a little bit different, but he also agrees. Around this particular time, the passion, what they call the Passion of the Christ, this time there is a lot of correlation between the Gospels, but there's still extra details which one witness saw and the other witness didn't write about. So we're going to look at that and see what it has to say. So let's share the screen. Let's get the first one on the screen right now. So we're looking at the Gospel of John, chapter 18, and it starts with when Jesus has been arrested. So it says, so this is early in the morning, Monday morning, it would be this week, Monday morning, very, very early Monday morning, before sunrise, before dawn even. The band of soldiers with its commander and the officers of the Jews. And here when it says Jews, you should always know that when the translations are always going to say Jews, but the word in Greek is Judeans. So we're going to say Judeans every time we come across this word, just to make sure that we can avoid the, institutional anti-Semitism, which is in the translations of the Bible. It is Judeans, not Jews. So Judeans, who are Judeans? You will find out during this. It's very, very clear that the Judeans are Roman citizens of Judea who have no king but Caesar, unlike the Jews who have no king but Hashem. It's very different. So we cannot call these people Jews because they say very clearly they have no king but Caesar. That means they are Roman citizens of Judea. They are the ones who have a right to say. They're not what we call the plebeians, the plebs, who have no rights. They're not the ones who are Roman citizens have accepted no king but Caesar. The plebeians, the plebs, are not Roman citizens because they have no king but Hashem. So the plebs, the plebeians, have no right to say, no right to democracy, no right to vote, no right to have a decision in the matter. That would be the ones who have no king but Hashem. Whereas those who are Roman citizens, who have no king but Caesar, they are the ones who have a right to vote and make a decision on matters. So it's very important to know the distinction here. Anyway, we'll continue. We'll start with reading probably we'll go through the Gospels a bit at a time. We'll start with John here, because he's the one who mentions Annas. This is a very important detail, which is not mentioned in the other Gospels, that they brought him first to Annas and he was interrogated in the house of Annas. Then Annas sends him to Caiaphas later. So we'll read that part about Annas, and this is happening on Monday, early in the morning on Monday. So the band of soldiers with its commander and the officers of the Judeans arrested Jesus and bound him and brought him first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, okay, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Judeans that it would be better if one man died for the people. Then, of course, we know that Peter gives his first denial. We'll skip through this. It's not important for the rest of the story. First denial while Jesus is in the house of Annas. So this is happening at the same time that this is happening, right? The denial, Peter's first denial, is happening at the same time that Jesus is in front of Annas, the high priest. There are more than one high priest. Don't think to yourself that there's only one Kohen Gadol. That's not the case and never has been the case. There are many high priests. And this particular high priest they bring him to is Annas. So the high priest Annas questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. I have spoken openly to the whole world, Jesus answered. I always taught in the synagogues and in the temple, where all the Judeans come together. I said nothing in secret. Why are you asking me? Ask those who heard my message. Surely they know what I said. When Jesus had said this, one of the officers standing nearby slapped him in the face and said, Is this how you answer the high priest? Jesus replied, If I said something wrong, testify as to what was wrong. But if I spoke correctly, then why do you strike me? People don't like the truth. That's why they get upset when it's too many times it's happened when you say something and you trigger somebody and you say to them, what did I say that's wrong? If there's something that I said that's wrong, point it out. Otherwise, why are you upset? People don't like the truth. Simple fact. Then Annas sent him still bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Now, at the time that Annas sends him to Caiaphas the high priest, when he is with Caiaphas, Peter's second and third denials take place. So we know that it's already dawn. That's the only thing which we're going to get out of this point here. Peter's first denial is that it was dawn. The cockerel has cried already. Okay, that's the first denial. The cockerel is going to cry. In the other Gospels, they tell us that the cock crows twice. And so the first crow, he doesn't remember what Jesus says, but at the second crow, he realizes. Now, so when they've taken him away to Caiaphas is when the second crow, when we hear the second crow of the cockerel. So Caiaphas, we're going to continue then with a different story. We're going to go to a different version. We're going to go to Matthew and have a listen to what Matthew's got to say. So he's with Caiaphas now. Okay? Those who had arrested Jesus led him away to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders had gathered. So they're having a proper sort of trial now. They've been in the middle of the night with Annas. Annas has put him on trial there and taken him to Caiaphas. Convening the Sanhedrin for Caiaphas is a big deal. People have to be gathered from their homes and come together. So it's going to be already after dawn. This is early in the morning. Maybe it's before sunrise, but it's still going to be early in the morning. Jews have to say their prayers at that time. So it's going to be after all the Jews have said their morning prayers. Those who had arrested Jesus led him away to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders had gathered. But Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest, and he went in and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. Now the chief priests, this is again, we're talking about priests here. There's no mention of Pharisees at the moment. They have scribes, elders, and chief priests. No Pharisees at the moment. That's very important to pay attention to. If there were Pharisees involved, it's going to be Beit Shammai, who have the authority at that time, and Beit Hillel have no authority. So it's a convention of the people who have authority, maybe Beit Shammai. They're not mentioned yet. Then there's also the high priests, the Sadducees, the Sadducees and the Boethusians and the Herodians. That's the high priests at that time. They're in power. The scribes, who are just people who write down everything, recording everything, supposed to be recording things that the Pharisees say, but also the people who write out the scriptures. They would be Levites in general, and elders, other important people. Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest, and he went in and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. Now the chief priest and the whole Sanhedrin were seeking false testimony against Jesus in order to put him to death, but they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 came forward and declared, "This man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days." So the high priest stood up and asked him, this is Caiaphas, asking him, "Have you no answer?" Just so you know, Caiaphas is called haKoph in the Talmudic traditions, like and also the rest of the Mishnah and Oral Torah. haKoph means the monkey, so they call him haKoph because they're making fun of him, which is also to kind of give you a strong clue that Caiaphas is by no means respected among Orthodox Jews. So the high priest stood up and asked him, "Have you no answer? What are these men testifying against you?" But Jesus remained silent. Then the high priest said to him, "I charge you under oath of the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God." "You have said it yourself," Jesus answered. "But I say to all of you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." At this, the high priest, who's a Sadducee, a Boethusian, or maybe a Herodian, nevertheless, that's who the high priests were at that time, Sadducees, Boethusians, and Herodians, and they were all basically what we call Torah, sola scriptura, Hebrews. They did not follow the oral Torah. And the high priest tore his clothes and declared, "He has blasphemed. Why do we need any more witnesses? Look now, you have heard the blasphemy. What do you think?" This is always a very curious thing when you read it as an educated Jew who has studied Judaism properly, you think, where was the blasphemy? We're all children of God. Why would he be upset if we say, yeah, I'm a child of God? Because all Jews are children of God. Israel is my firstborn son. The Bible says so. So it's in the book of Exodus. So why is he upset? What's going on here? And then maybe it's something else. He said, I say unto you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of glory, clouds of heaven. Well, why would you be upset about that? It's like, okay, you're making a prophecy. Let's see if it comes true. If it comes true, great. If it doesn't come true, well, too bad. But there's nothing wrong with saying that. It's like, okay, we'll hope that this might be. He's basically saying that the eschatology is about to happen. You're going to see the Son of Man coming on the clouds. This is what Daniel speaks about. This is what Zechariah speaks about. So great. Let's look forward to this. This is wonderful news. So where's the blasphemy? This is a very big puzzle from Orthodox Judaism. Where's the blasphemy? The blasphemy is understood only if you realize that the guy speaking is not an Orthodox Jew. The high priest is a Sadducee. And the Sadducees don't have the same view on God as the Pharisees do. The high priests have a different view. In Pharisaical Judaism, for example, Rabbeinu Bahya makes very clear in the commentaries in the Mishnah that in the Midrashim that the one we see described in the Bible who is at Mount Sinai with with Moses and the 70 elders when they become the Sanhedrin in the first place, seated on the sapphire throne, or the throne with the sea of glass, or the sea of sapphire underneath the throne. The one that is seen by Ezekiel, the one that is seen by Isaiah the prophet, but the one that is seen and described in detail throughout the Tanakh, is understood in Orthodox Judaism as Sar HaPanim, the Prince of the Presence. It's like also known as Yehovah, the angel of the Lord, the one who sort of represents God's representative. But for Sadducees, they don't have the same concept. They don't know about this angelic representative. For the Pharisees, this being is what we call netiot. It's a kind of the higher than regular angels. Regular angels are called nifradim, but this one is called netiot. But for Sadducees, they don't have a concept of nifradim and netiot. You're either an angel or you're God, and this is clearly not an angel because the Bible doesn't call it an angel, it calls it God, the Lord. So for the Sadducees, and this is a big shock if you haven't studied Judaism, for the Sadducees, God is anthropomorphic. That's a really important point to catch and understand. The Sadducees were anthropomorphic. They understood God as an anthropomorphic being. And that this being who's described at Mount Sinai, etc., is none other than God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. The one that the Pharisees would call Ein Sof. Now, the Pharisees would say, no, Ein Sof is not. That means the infinite one. The infinite one. The infinite one is not inside of his creation. For the Pharisees, we say, is outside of creation. Everything you see and described in the Bible is his representation, his representative sent into creation, so that we can get an idea about him and to sort of grasp concept of God on our level. But this is his representation. Okay, this is his representation, his presence. But for the Sadducees, that is the infinite one, which is a bit weird because it means that the infinite one was contained by the universe. For Pharisees, God is not anthropomorphic. This aspect of God is anthropomorphic, but God in entirety is not anthropomorphic. For the Sadducees, though, that description given in the Bible is the only God, and there is nobody else beside him. So they don't know what he's talking about when he says, I'm the Son of God, and you will see the Son of Man sitting on the right and the power coming in the clouds of heaven. For them, they're saying they think he's saying, I am the child of this guy you saw seated on the throne, and you will see the son of the one seated on the throne sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on clouds of glory. It's basically what they call shituf, what they call shirk in Judeo-Arabic, or establishing a partner alongside God. It's inconceivable for the Sadducees. The Sadducees don't have a concept of the infinite one and his representative. They only see this representative, what the Pharisees call the representative. They think that is God, and to say that he has a son, a partner in his power, in the power, is inconceivable for them. Sadducees are a bit like we know from their history. They come from they were coming from a student of somebody called Antigonus of Socho, who was a Pharisee. But this student Zadok rejected the oral Torah, and he went and copied the Samaritan way of having basically the Torah alone. So they rejected many of the prophets as well. So that's why you say, well, the second is, but Daniel talks about this, Zechariah talks about this. Yes, I know, but the Sadducees had rejected those. They didn't follow those. They were basically Torah alone. So they didn't see anything other than God in the description of this one on the throne. So Jesus is saying there's a partnership here. And that's enough to upset the Sadducees. So then we can see, I see. So when the high priest tears his clothes and declares he has blasphemed, he's blasphemed according to Sadducee Judaism or Sadduceeism, but he hasn't blasphemed according to Pharisaical Judaism. But he hasn't got any of the Pharisees in this Sanhedrin. It makes it very clear that its chief priest and the whole Sanhedrin was there. Scribes and elders gathered. This is a Sanhedrin of Sadducees, not a Sanhedrin of Pharisees. So that's why he's so upset. He says, "You've heard the blasphemy. What do you think? He deserves to die," they answered. And they spat in his face and struck him. And others slapped him and said, "Prophesy to us, Christ. Who hit you?" Now, meanwhile, Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came up to him. "You were also with Jesus the Galilean," she said. But he denied it before them all. "I did not know what you're talking about." When Peter had gone out into the gateway, another servant girl saw him and said to the people there, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." And again he denied it with an oath and said, "I don't know the man." And after a little while, those standing nearby came to Peter, saying, "Surely you are one of them." They said, "For your accent gives you away. You have a Galilean accent." At that he began to curse and swear to them, "I do not know the man." And immediately the rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the word that Jesus had spoken, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. Okay. The other version on Mark of this, basically the same, but it says, "Before the rooster crows twice, you'll deny me 3 times." And so the first time we hear the rooster crowed while he was outside of Annas's house, and the second time is outside of Caiaphas's house. And that's those are the second crows. So at this point, they have, while Peter is outside, although it comes after this, it makes you think, okay, so this happens afterwards. Therefore, this happened early in the morning. But it simply means that at the same time that Jesus was inside being interrogated by the Sanhedrin, the rooster crowed for the second time. John makes this very clear in his gospel because he puts the whole story of Peter's denial while Jesus is in front of Annas, and then as soon as he comes out from Annas, is sent down to the Caiaphas, the high priest. John makes it clear that Peter was standing warming himself, so they asked him, "Aren't you also one of his disciples?" And he denied it and said, "I am not." And one of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, "Didn't I see you with him in the garden?" Peter denied it once more, and immediately a rooster crowed. So this is immediately happening after they have finished with Annas, and Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas. The order of the stories given in Matthew and Mark and Luke make it look like that Peter is the cock is crowing after the Sanhedrin have finished their sentencing of Jesus. But it's actually happening at the time that Jesus is taken to Caiaphas's house. And it's okay, to put 2 events which are happening at the same time, one after the other. You've got to decide which one comes first. Well, some people would say, I think this is more important. We'll deal with this, and then we'll do the less important thing, Peter's denial, second. Whereas John says, no, we should deal with Peter's denial first, and then the rest of the trial second. It doesn't really matter because they're happening at the same time. But the problem with having it second having Peter's denial second, it makes people think that this is something which is still happening before dawn, which is not what's happened. Clearly, dawn has already come. The cockerel has already crowed. That is why this is the second time, as why Mark mentions it as the second time that the cockerel crows. It already crowed first time when Jesus was taken to Annas. Okay. I'm on Matthew, that's why I can't see. I've got to go back to John. Okay, so when we go back to John, Peter's first denial is happening there when they brought him to Annas. They brought him first to Annas. And Peter's denial is happening at that time. Okay, that's the first denial. And then they take him to Caiaphas, and that's the second denial. So when we go and see Matthew for the standing in front of Caiaphas, Mark also has him standing before Caiaphas. And what you should understand is this event of standing before Caiaphas and having the decision made to kill him, to take him to say he deserves death, takes a long time. But it's only because the story of Peter's hearing the cock crow for the second time, because that comes afterwards, you think that this is all happening in the early morning. But it couldn't have possibly happened in the early morning. This would have taken all day. Already in the early morning, the cock crowed for the first time while he's being interrogated by Annas. Then he's taken to Caiaphas. Then the cock crows a second time. And Jesus is put on trial all day. At the end of that, they strike him with their fists and say prophecy, and the officers receive him with their slaps. And Luke also continues the story as well. So the next thing they do is they take him to Pilate. So this event being taken to Pilate is the next day. We should have a look at what it says. Here. When morning came. But morning already came. Morning already came when he was taken to Annas and Peter heard the cock crow for the first time. That's morning. So morning already came when he was in Annas's house. After Annas's house, he was taken to Caiaphas and the cock crowed again for a second time. So morning is absolutely, totally, completely here by now. And then they're going to have this long trial with Caiaphas, and they're going to get all their witnesses together and have all the people convened after the Jews have done their morning prayers. And then suddenly in Matthew 27, it says, when morning came. What does this mean? It's very easy to understand what it means. If you use your brains, if you think a little bit, it means the next day, early in the morning. We've already had early in the morning. Well, this has got to be the next morning. It has to be. There's no other explanation for this little verse here, this little phrase, early in the morning, after we've already had early in the morning. Twice. We had early in the morning with Annas, and we had early in the morning with Caiaphas. You could say, okay, but those two events could have been in the same morning. Fair enough. But this is early in the morning. So it can't be the same day. It has to be a new day. There's no other explanation. So this is Tuesday. This is the next day. So the first day we had was the 16th of Nisan. And now, Mark 15, Matthew 27, we were on the 17th of Nisan, early in the morning. The chief priests, elders, scribes, and the whole Sanhedrin devised a plan. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. So Pilate questioned him. Well, this is the second day of his trial. Are you the king of the Jews? You have said so, Jesus replied. The chief priests began to accuse him of many things. Then Pilate questioned him again. Have you no answer? Look how many charges they're bringing against you. But to Pilate's amazement, Jesus made no further reply. Got to go and have a look at the story in Matthew as well. When morning came, all the chief priests and elders of the people conspired against Jesus to put him to death. They bound him and led him away and handed him over to Pilate the governor. And we have a little bit more extra detail in Matthew. He tells us that this is when Judas hangs himself. When Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was filled with remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders. Still no mention of Pharisees yet. I have sinned by betraying innocent blood, he said. What is that to us? They replied. You bear the responsibility. So Judas threw the silver into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. The chief priest picked up the pieces of silver and said, "It's unlawful to put this into the treasury, since it's blood money." And after conferring together, they used the money to buy the potter's field as a burial place for foreigners. That's why it's been called the field of blood to this day. Then what was spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. They took the 30 pieces of silver, the price set on him by the people of Israel, and they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord had commanded me. And then Jesus is standing before Pilate. So this is all happening on the second day. This is the 17th of Nisan, Tuesday. Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, who questioned him. "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," Jesus replied. And when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Do you not hear how many charges they are bringing against you?" But Jesus gave no answer, not even to a single charge, much to the government's amazement. And we have the same story in Luke as well. So we're going to go to Luke and see what Luke's got to say about it. So it says, "Then the whole council rose and led Jesus away to Pilate, and they began to accuse him, saying, 'We found this man subverting our nation, forbidding payment of taxes to Caesar, and proclaiming himself to be a king, Christ, a king.' So Pilate asked him, 'Are you the king of the Jews?' 'You have said so,' Jesus replied. Then Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, 'I find no basis for a charge against this man.' But they kept insisting, 'He stirs up the people all over Judea with his teaching. He began in Galilee and has come all the way here.'" So that's the second day he's with Pilate. Do you think Pilate's jumping out of bed early in the morning to deal with this? They led him to Pilate, but he's not going to be jumping out of bed ready to deal with this immediately. There's going to be some time to wait until Pilate can come and sit down and deal with the matter. Then he's going to want to hear some witnesses and some statements. Then when he finds that the man has started his mission in Galilee, he say, "Well, if he started in Galilee, then he probably is under Herod's jurisdiction." So when Pilate heard this, he asked if the man was a Galilean. And learning that Jesus was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who himself was in Jerusalem at that time. Now, this doesn't take 5 minutes, okay? You don't just get on your motorbike and go through the old city with Jesus on the back seat, driving through. It takes time. You got to send a message to Herod saying, "We've got this person. We need to send. We think he's under your jurisdiction, so we're going to send him over to you." And then you've got to wait for Herod to finish whatever entertainment he's enjoying for his particular day, and then come and deal with the matter. So this would be the next day even. So we're talking about, it'll be the Wednesday now. It'll be Wednesday the 18th by now. So learning that Jesus was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was himself at Jerusalem at that time. Now that could have been sent on the 17th, but Herod would have probably seen him the next day. This guy would have been sent bound into the prison and held there, while Herod would be informed and arranged to deal with him the following day. He's not going to deal with him today. He's got too much on his plate already. Certainly, this is how kings are. They're not just, not just hanging around waiting for somebody to be sent for them to decide. They've got things to do. So it's going to be Wednesday by the time. When Herod saw Jesus, it's going to be Wednesday. When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased. He had wanted to see him for a long time because he had heard about him and was hoping to see him perform a miracle. Herod questioned Jesus at great length, but he gave no answer. Meanwhile, the chief priests and the scribes stood there vehemently accusing him. And even Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him. Dressing him in a fine robe, they sent him back to Pilate. That day, Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this time, they had been enemies. So now we're talking about today, Thursday. This is what's going to be happening on Thursday. The crowd chooses Barabbas, which is also mentioned in Matthew, Mark, and a little bit in John as well. So for the little passage in John, we should look at that. It's a very short passage, but it's there at the end of John chapter 18. They led Jesus away from Caiaphas to Praetorium. By now it was early morning, and the Judeans did not enter the Praetorium to avoid being defiled and unable to eat the Passover. This is important. We're in something called Kol haMoed, which is the 7 days of unleavened bread, between the first day, which is a holy convocation, and the last day, which is a holy convocation. The Passover feast in whole is a 7-day feast, and during that time, the chief priests have to eat a lot of offerings. I calculate there are bulls, there are goats. Well, there's at least one goat. There's bulls, there's sheep, there's goat, there's flour offerings and wine offerings, and in total there's 162 offerings which are brought throughout this week. Okay, now, there's no way you're going to say you're going to eat 162 offerings in one day. It is throughout the whole week, but they have to stay in a condition called taharat. They have to be tahor throughout this week in order to eat the offerings. So the Passover offerings are all the way through the week. So some people have said, okay, this means that they hadn't had the Passover Seder yet because they didn't want to be defiled and unable to eat the Passover. But that just simply shows the lack of knowledge of Judaism among people who say such things. Not being able to eat the Passover doesn't mean just the Passover lamb or the Seder the first night. It means the entire Passover feast. So these people didn't want to set foot inside the praetorium, so they didn't become defiled and unable to eat all the Passover offerings which have to be brought this week. Okay, so that's what that means. It means throughout the whole week. And we know that this is not the Yom Tov itself, because it says later that there's a special Sabbath coming. And we already know that the Yom Tov was started because Jesus had already celebrated the first day of Passover with his disciples, as it says so in Matthew and Mark and Luke. So this is during what we call Kol haMoed, and they would be, if they were defiled, they would be unable to eat the Passover offerings during Kol haMoed. Okay, so that's understood simply from a knowledge of Judaism. So Pilate went out to them and asked, "What accusation are you bringing against this man?" "Well, if he were not a criminal," they replied, "we would not have handed him over to you." "You take him and judge him by your own law," Pilate told him. "We're not permitted to execute anyone," the Jews replied. This is Judeans replied. This was to fulfill the word that Jesus had spoken to indicate the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate went back to the praetorium, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Are you saying this on your own account?" Jesus asked, "or did others tell you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "Your own people and the chief priests handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Judeans. But now my kingdom is not of this realm." "Oh, then you are a king," Pilate said. "You say that I'm a king," Jesus answered. "For this reason I was born and have come into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." "What is truth?" Pilate asked. And having said this, he went out again to the Jews and told them, "I find no basis for a charge against him. But it's your custom that I release to you one prisoner at the Passover. So then, do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews?" "Not this man," they shouted, "but Barabbas." So we have the story of Barabbas coming in John at that point as well. So with Luke, when Pilate heard he was a Galilean, sent him to Herod, we got that, and he came back, and then Pilate called together the chief priests and the rulers of the people, and said to them in Luke, "You brought this man to me as one who was inciting the people to rebellion. I've examined him here in your presence and found him not guilty of the charges against him. Not guilty of your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. As you can see, he's done nothing deserving of death. Therefore, I will punish him and release him." But they all cried out in unison, "Away with this man! Release Barabbas to us." Barabbas had been imprisoned for insurrection in the city and for murder. We can continue the story with Matthew. He's got basically the same idea. Now it was the governor's custom to release at the feast to the crowd a prisoner of their choosing. At that time, they were holding a notorious prisoner named Barabbas. So when the crowd had assembled, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" For he knew it was out of envy that they had handed Jesus over to him. Now while Pilate was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent to him a message, saying, "Have nothing to do with this innocent man, for I have suffered terribly in a dream today because of him." But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus put to death. "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. "Barabbas," they replied. "What then should I do with Jesus, who is called the Christ?" Pilate asked. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why?" asked Pilate. "What evil has he done?" They shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." I have very basic versions of the same story in other Gospels, but Matthew is the one who gives the detail about the dream. Basically the same there in Mark and also in Luke. Wanting to release Jesus, Pilate addressed them again. They kept on shouting, "Crucify him, crucify him." A third time he said to them, "What evil has this man done? I have found in him no offense worthy of death. So after I punish him, I will release him." And the punishment we hear is given in detail in the Gospel of John. So we've got to find that passage in chapter 19 of John. So this is the punishment that he dishes out today on Jesus. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head and dressed him in a purple robe. And they went up to him again and again, saying, "Hail, King of the Judeans," and slapping him in the face. Once again, Pilate came out and said to the Judeans, "Look, I am bringing him out to you, to let you know that I find no basis for a charge against him." And when Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." As soon as the chief priests and the officers saw him, they shouted, "Crucify him, crucify him." "You take him and crucify him," Pilate replied. "I find no basis for a charge against him." Remember that this is because his wife has told him have nothing to do with that man. Okay? "We have a law," answered the Jews, or the Judeans, "and according to that law he must die because he declared himself to be the Son of God." Now this is the first time Pilate hears this. Now when Pilate hears this statement, he's even more afraid. Remember, he's a pagan. Pagan Romans are used to the concept of sons of God walking around. So he's now going to be very curious to want to know exactly where were you born. So he's even more afraid, and he went back to the praetorium. "Where are you from?" he asked. Now he already knows that he's from Galilee, or at least he started in Galilee, because he tried to get rid of Jesus by sending over to Herod in the first place, and that's where he got his purple robe from. But now he's curious about his birth, as I said, because they have said that he is a son of God. So he's wanting to know, tell me more about your background, family background, where are you from? But Jesus gave no answer. So Pilate said to him, "Do you refuse to speak to me? Do you not know that I have the authority to release you and the authority to crucify you?" And Jesus answered, "You would have no authority over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of greater sin." From then on, Pilate tried to release him, but the Jews kept shouting, "If you release this man, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who declares himself a king is defying Caesar." When Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus out and sat on the judgment seat at a place called the Stone Pavement, which in Hebrew is called Gabbatha. It was the day of preparation for the Passover, about the 6th hour. So it means that this was now sunset. Thursday has now come to an end. Sunset has started. The 6th hour of the day, 6 p.m., you might say in a modern language. Now, you'll say, hold on a second, that's not the way they counted hours. The way we count hours today are not the same way they counted hours in those days. That's true. There is more than one way of counting hours in those days, and in the other Gospels, they will agree with you. But in this Gospel, it's at odds. The way it counts hours in this Gospel is at odds with the other Gospels. Because the other Gospels say he was crucified at the 3rd hour, and here he's only being sentenced at the 6th hour. So there is a big discrepancy between this Gospel's use of time and the way this Gospel counts time, and the other Gospels count time. It doesn't mean that there's that one is wrong and the other is right. It simply means that there's more than one way of counting time. This Gospel is the one you have to think about as more modern way of thinking. 6 o'clock in the afternoon, the 6th hour. We get our concept of hours from the old church tradition of hours, and the 6th hour is basically sunset. So it means it was the day of preparation after sunset, okay? Because the day of preparation begins after sunset tonight. Preparation day is the day to prepare for the Sabbath. The Sabbath is coming on Saturday, The preparation day for the Sabbath is always a Friday. But this Sabbath was a particularly special Sabbath, so it could have been any day of the week. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Once the sun has set on Thursday, it's now preparation day for that special Sabbath. So we know that the Kol HaMoed has come to an end. It's almost they're on the last day of Kol HaMoed. The sun has set on Thursday. It's past 6 p.m. And Pilate said to the Jews, "Here is your king," the Judeans, "here is your king." At this they shouted, "Away with him, crucify him." "Shall I crucify your king?" Pilate asked. And the Judeans say, and this is where the big clue is, we understand that they're Judeans, not Jews. "We have no king but Caesar," replied the chief priests. The Sadducees, they're saying, we are not people of Hashem. We are people of Caesar. We are Roman citizens, and we have no king but Caesar. And these are the so-called Jews, which we're talking about. They were the chief priests, the Boethusians and the Sadducees. The Sadducees and the Boethusians, the Herodians. This is the group we're talking about, the Judeans, not what we would consider today to be Jews. Nevertheless, as we said, there's an institutional anti-Semitism in the way they translate these Gospels, and they will always translate it as Jews rather than Judeans. We have to bear in mind that they have no king but Caesar, and that is not the way of the Jews. We, the Jews, have no king but Hashem, so they are very different people from us. So it's the evening, and then he hands him over to be crucified. Now, we get some more detail about the crucifixion, which is going to be happening tomorrow morning. Okay? So he says that after they had mocked him, it goes to the details of they took him away and they mocked him again. So he handed Jesus over. He had Jesus flogged and handed Jesus over to be crucified. And then tonight, the soldiers are mocking him. It's a hellish night for Jesus. The soldiers are going to be mocking him all night. The governor's soldiers took Jesus in the praetorium and gathered the whole company around him. They stripped him, put a scarlet robe on him. They twisted together a crown of thorns, and they set on his head. They put a staff in his hand, knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they spat on him and took the staff and struck him on the head repeatedly. Remember, this had happened before they brought him out to Pilate, and Pilate was trying to release him the second time, and they said, "No, we have no king but Caesar." The same thing is happening again. And after they had mocked him, they removed the robe and put his own clothes back on him, and they led him away to crucify him. Get some information from Mark here. So they mocked him, same story, dressed him in the purple robe, twisted together the crown of thorns, set on his head. And they began to salute him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they kept striking his head with a staff and spitting on him. And they knelt down, bowed before him. And after they had mocked him, they removed the purple robe and put on his own clothes back on. And they led him out to crucify him. And then on the way to crucify him, they find Simon of Cyrene to help him carry the cross. And it says, it was the 3rd hour when they crucified him. Remember, it was the 6th hour when they sentenced him, and the 3rd hour when they crucified him. There's no discrepancy here. It's very, very simple and straightforward. The 6th hour is 6 p.m. The 3rd hour is 3rd hour of the morning. The 3rd hour of the morning. 6th hour is 6th hour of the day at night time. It's after sunset. It's the day of preparation. And this is the 3rd hour of the morning. Okay, so we've had evening and morning. You have 6 p.m., 6 a.m., right? 6 p.m., 6 a.m. You can have 9 p.m., 9 a.m. Now, 9 a.m. is the 3rd hour of the morning. The 3rd hour of the morning, 9 a.m. So they took him out at 9 a.m. and went to crucify him. The 3rd hour of the morning obviously comes before the 6th hour of the morning. So there's only one way to understand that 6th hour, and it has to be the 6th hour of the evening, the 6th hour beforehand. 3rd hour of the morning, 6th hour of the evening, and that's where the reconciliation comes. There is no contradiction as long as you understand it's the next morning. Okay, the sun has set. It's preparation day. Jesus is taken away by the soldiers. He's mocked all night. And in the 3rd hour of the morning, they crucify him. Straightforward. As long as you understand these things, it's straightforward. And the charge against him said, King of the Jews. Along with Jesus, they crucified 2 robbers, one his right hand, one his left. Those who passed by heaped abuse upon him, shaking their heads and saying, "Aha, you who are going to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, come down from the cross and save yourself." In the same way, the chief priests and the scribes mocked him among themselves, saying, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, come down now from the cross, so that we may see and believe." And even those who were crucified with him berated him. At least one of them did. Then, from the 6th hour to the 9th hour. Okay, this is a different 6th hour from the 6th hour that he was sentenced. It's so obvious. It was 6th hour of the evening beforehand, and now it's the 6th hour of the morning, until the 9th hour. Darkness came over all the land. At the 9th hour, Jesus cried in a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of them standing by heard this, they said, "Behold, he is calling Elijah." And someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, and he put it on the reed and held it up for Jesus to drink, saying, "Leave him alone, let's see if Elijah comes to take him down." But Jesus let out a loud cry and breathed his last. And the veil of the temple was torn in 2 from top to bottom. You say, well, that didn't happen. Oh, yes, it is. In the Talmud, it tells us about that, the great earthquake and the door of the which happened at that time. And the door of the temple would not shut ever again, until the destruction of the temple in the year 70, for the last 40 years. So we know it happened since the temple was destroyed in the year 70, and it says that this, for the last 40 years after the earthquake, the door would not shut. We know that this earthquake took place around the year 30. So the veil of the temple was torn in 2 from top to bottom. And when the centurion standing there in front of Jesus saw how he had breathed his last, he said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." And there were also women watching from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James the younger, and Joseph and Salome. These women had followed Jesus and ministered to him while he was in Galilee, and there were many other women who had come up to Jerusalem with him. Now it's already evening, and since it was preparation day, see, it's an agreement with John. This is preparation day. It's not a different day, same day. And he's died at the 9th hour, having been on the cross, from the 3rd hour, and it's preparation day. It's still preparation day. In John, they said that at the 6th hour on preparation day, he was sentenced to death. But in Mark, they say that from the 3rd hour to the 9th hour on preparation day, he was on the cross. Well, how is it possible to have 2 6 hours? 2 6 hours on preparation day? Because of the 6th hour of the evening and 6th hour of the morning. And the evening comes before the morning. It's very simple and straightforward. So it was a different day. This is Friday. And since it was preparation day, that is the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, a prominent council member who himself was waiting for the kingdom of God, boldly went to Pilate to ask for the body of Jesus. Pilate was surprised to hear that Jesus was already dead, so he summoned the centurion to ask if this was so. And when Pilate had confirmed it with the centurion, he granted the body to Joseph. So Joseph brought a linen cloth, took down the body of Jesus, wrapped it in the cloth, and placed it in the tomb that had been cut out of the rock. Then he rolled the stone against the entrance of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, saw where his body was placed. That's it. So we have a clear idea of the sequence of events which took place, but only if you understand a little bit of historical context. You have to understand that these people had no king but Caesar. That means they were Judeans, Roman citizens of Judea, not Jews, as we understand them. We also understand that he was accused of blasphemy by a Sadducee who doesn't have the same concept of God that Pharisees have. The Pharisees were not mentioned in any of this. You also know that when they took him through all of these things, from Annas' house to Caiaphas' house, that was certainly the first day. The morning had already broken. But when he took him from Caiaphas to Pilate, that was another morning, early in the morning. So that had to be a second day, after the second day of trial. Then, of course, Pilate sends him to Herod. And that's not going to be instant. That's going to be probably a third day. Then Herod sends him back to Pilate. That could happen on the third day, but then Pilate's got to spend all day dealing with Jesus. And his wife comes in and says, "I've had a dream." So it means that there's been another night has passed. So another night has passed. Do you think he hasn't spoken to his wife all day? He probably got up early in the morning and went to work. His wife is still asleep. Okay? But you think he hasn't spoken to his wife all day long now? No. This is another day. His wife has woken up and says, I've had a dream. Don't have anything to do with this holy man. Leave him alone. And he tries to have him set free, gets him whipped, and puts the crown of thorns on his head, brings him out, and they still want to crucify him. And they say they have no king but Caesar. This is the fourth day already. And at the end of that very long and trying day, when he's trying to go back and forth to please his wife, he doesn't want to make his wife upset. And then he realizes, oh my goodness, this person's also be some kind of god or demigod, because they say he's the son of God. Let me just try and work this out, because I'm a pagan and I believe in, demigods walking amongst us. So let me try and work out, where he comes from. But he doesn't give him any idea. In the end, he says, okay, I wash my hands of this situation. Take him yourselves and crucify him at the 6th hour on preparation day. And then at the 3rd hour on preparation day, he's put onto the cross. And from the 6th hour of preparation day to the 9th hour of preparation day, there's darkness, and he dies, and you take him off the cross. And it's still preparation day, and they have to get him in the tomb before the Sabbath begins, the special Sabbath. So there's no contradiction as long as you understand the sequence of events. That first 6th hour is clearly the evening hour, and the second 6th hour is clearly a daytime hour and morning hour. So it was a long, tough day for Pilate on Thursday, the 19th of Nisan. Thursday, the 19th of Nisan. And then they crucify him on Friday, the 20th of Nisan, before the special Sabbath begins, which is the 21st of Nisan. We have a very clear understanding of all this, but only if you understand a little bit about Judaism. This is why I'm here doing this recording for you, because I am a Jew and I come from Judaism and I have that study, and I want to share this with you because I'm promoting Noahide Judaism for Noahides, so that you will not lose Noahide faith, as we see what's happening with a lot of Christians who have been led astray by false churches, are abandoning God altogether and becoming atheists. It's massively happening all over the world. And atheists don't have the concept of morality which we Jews think humans should have, which Christians have had for 2,000 years. And we would like to preserve that morality that you have. Say, hold on to what you've got. It's not bump, it's not rubbish, it's not nonsense that you've inherited, as many of the sort of counter-missionaries do. Counter-missionaries are a different mission from me. I'm a Noahide missionary. Okay, it means I promote Noahide Judaism among the nations. I'm a Jew who promotes Noahide Judaism, but I'm kind of like a Noahide missionary. But there are other counter-missionaries there who simply want to attack Christians because you've been trying to convert Jews. It's a revenge. That's called a counter-missionary. I'm a Noahide missionary. They are counter-missionaries. We have two different missions. A counter-missionary is taking revenge against Christians for trying to convert Jews, and their only objective is to destroy your faith, because they feel like you've been destroying Jews' faiths. For example, Tovia Singer, a perfect example of a counter-missionary. We, on my side, that's the CJCUC, we completely disagree with Tovia Singer's approach. This is an anathema for us. It's completely opposed to the spirit of Judaism. We believe that we should take a mission of Noahide Judaism to the nations, that all nations should be following Noahide Judaism. We don't destroy your faith. We want to build up your faith and help you understand Jesus from the Judaic historical perspective. He was your Messiah, and this is the story. There's no contradiction in the Bible here, as long as you understand the story through the eyes of Judaism, which can open your eyes to these things. Even the Bible says, obey the scribes and the Pharisees. That's the Gospel of Matthew chapter 23. It also says, the Jews are the ones who preserve the oracles of God in the letters of Paul. So this knowledge that I'm trying to give you is so that you can read the gospel and see, I see, this is a clear event. But what the church has given you, what the church has traditionally told you, that all of this happens tonight. Jesus has his Last Supper tonight. He's arrested tonight. He's taken to Annas' house tonight, and then to Caiaphas early in the morning to tomorrow morning, and then from Caiaphas to Pilate, and then from Pilate to Herod, and then from Herod back to Pilate again. That all happens in the early morning before the crucifixion. I'm sorry. It's clearly bogus. It's clearly false. You've been lied to. That's not how it is. I'm so sorry. You have a choice. You can either follow your churches and the bogus story that they've peddled to you in order to usurp the position of the scribes and the Pharisees that Jesus himself put in authority over his people in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 23. Jesus himself put them in authority over his church. You can Follow those people who have tried to usurp that position, who are giving you bogus stories, which is leading to clearly, obviously, naturally, the destruction of your faith. And people like Tovia Singer, the counter missionaries, are easily able to tear apart the church story because it's clearly bogus, clearly in disagreement with the Bible. Or you can follow this approach that the scribes and the Pharisees have got to give you here and say, this is how it worked. It didn't happen in one night. It happened in an entire week. It was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and finally crucified on Friday. The Last Supper with his disciples was on the Sunday night, at the end of the first day of the Yom Tov. I talked about that in my previous show. I went into a lot of detail on that for you. And then all of this trial took place for the Holy Week. So that's what was going on here. And there's no contradiction when it says, oh, but they wanted to go in and eat the Passover, because these chief priests had to eat the 162 offerings which are being taken throughout the Passover week. And they couldn't have eaten those if they were in a tameh state, if they had tuma, which means ritual impurity. So hence they couldn't go into Pilate's praetorium for the entire week. They couldn't go in there for the entire week. And there's no contradiction when it says that Pilate sentenced him at the 6th hour, and then he was on the cross from the 3rd hour to the 9th hour. There's no contradiction because you have 6 p.m., you have 6 a.m. You have 3 p.m., you have 3 a.m. Okay? So clearly there was a slight difference in the way they measured the time. 3 a.m. In current world is quite dark outside. Okay? But 3 a.m. in their time was more like 9 a.m. in our modern way of counting. So you could say that 6 p.m. was like 9 p.m. in their day. So they were like 3 hours ahead of us in the way we count our time today. But otherwise, it's the same. So 6th hour equal to 9 p.m. on the preparation day, the evening before. And then 3 a.m. equivalent to modern day 9 a.m. on the same preparation day in the morning. No contradictions, you just have to understand the sequence of events. We've got different ways of measuring the time because one is a Roman count and the other is a Jewish count. But in the end, you've got PMs and AMs. So there's no contradiction. All right, so I just wanted to make sure that I got this across for you today and hope that you'll have a Holy Week. Well, if you've been following this channel, you've been having a Holy Week already. And if you haven't been following this channel, it's the first time to listen, I hope you'll like and subscribe and pay attention to the channel from now on when a video pops up so you can hear some more edifying facts for your faith. This is for Messianic Noahides, and it's not for those people who have had their faith destroyed by counter-missionaries. Go and have a research and learn a little bit about the CJCUC. CJCUC is very important and worldwide organization, CJCUC, which is the Center for Jewish Christian Understanding and Cooperation. And you will understand more about how we don't have the here. Let me share it on the screen. We don't have the mission to destroy your faith. We want to build up your faith. This is CJCUC. Okay. And you can really, you should get into this and start learning about all the pages we have here to see that we don't want to destroy your faith. You're doing very well as Noahides, or you were doing very well as Noahides for about 2,000 years. But now we're in the last days. This is the march of Gog Magog across the planet. Everybody is under the tyranny of Gog Magog right now. The great falling away has happened with COVID-19 when everybody became apostate. Too many apostasies across the world. Everybody left their religions because they realized, what kind of a religion is it that, it can't be there to help me in my darkest hour, and I can't even go to the church. People left the churches like in droves. They were leaving, and the man of lawlessness has clearly been revealed. The MAGA sort of movement is the Antichrist religion, where they're saying that Donald Trump is the Messiah and Elon Musk is his prophet. This is clearly the Antichrist religion, which is spreading across the planet like mad, far right Antichrist religion. The final condition, this is Magog's level, of course. We've already had the beast and the false prophet and the whore of Babylon. That already died 1,000 years ago. We've already had the rule of law for 1,000 years. That was the word of God coming down from heaven, ruling the people with 1,000 laws. It was a day of darkness, as Zechariah said, and nobody would recognize that it was the day of the Lord until the day had ended. And that day has come to an end, and people are starting to say, oh no, my goodness, we're losing all of the safeties which were put in place for us for the past 1,000 years. People struggle to give us human rights and the rule of law, and now it's all being abolished by the man of lawlessness. And the people who are his disciples around the world copying him and trying to remove all those safety nets which protected humans across the planet. That's happening right now. And that religion is spreading across the world right now, which means that we're in the very, very last days. And at this time, it's very, very important for you to build up your faith, to strengthen your faith, to hold on to your faith. We're not talking about supporting the state of Israel and sending your money to Netanyahu to kill Gazans. No, we're not talking about this. This is not Judaism. That is not what God wants you to do. That land is called Canaan. It's not called Israel. It's called the land of Israel only because the children of Israel occupied the land of Canaan. But in Judaism, it's always been called the land of Canaan. And God doesn't want you to bless Canaan. He doesn't want you to bless Canaan. He wants you to bless Israel, which is the soul of the Jewish people. But that soul of the Jewish people is being ripped out of Israel right now. There are plenty of people that the Board of Deputies has recently just said the same thing. Let me try and find an example of that. The Board of Deputies. Let's see it. Yeah, here we go. The Board of Deputies. 13 hours ago. Let's put this on here. Members of the leading British Jewish body condemn Israel's latest actions in Gaza. The Board of Deputies. Is that being shared on the screen right now? No, I haven't shared that on the screen. Let me just share that in the screen. Yeah. So you understand what we're talking about. And we can reject all here. That's the article there. Oh, it won't let me show the article on screen unless I accept all the annoying, what's it called? Cookies, which is okay. I can do that for a second just to help you. And then I'll erase my cookies history. So there we go. The members of the leading British Jewish body condemn Israel's latest actions in Gaza. And these are the signatories of the Board of Deputies who say in an open letter that Israel's soul, and this is the key point here, Israel's soul is being ripped out. And we cannot turn a blind eye to the loss of life. Don't think to yourself that if you are giving money to the state of Israel, you're somehow blessing Israel. You're not. The thing you have to bless is the soul of Israel. That is what the Jews are supposed to carry. That is the soul which Jesus calls Israel my firstborn son. That soul is a pacifist soul. It is. It's in the Kabbalah we have a name for each of the aspects of this soul. It's basically what they call keter, which is initiative. Basically, keter is initiative. Chochma, which is wisdom, which is fundamentally patience. Bina, which is understanding. Dath, which is learning. Chesed, which is loving kindness. Then you have gevura, which is it's responsibility, it's strength of character. Then you have tiferet, which is reliability, honor. Then you have netzach, which is perseverance. And then you have hod, which is gratitude. No, this is the character, or this is the soul of the Messiah. This is the soul of Israel, the soul of the firstborn son. Kindness, responsibility, reliability, perseverance, gratitude, initiative, patience, understanding, learning. How can you say that this is exactly what the state of Israel is exhibiting right now? It's not exhibiting any of this. It's actually ripping out the soul, the Jewish soul. It is devoid of the Jewish soul. So we're not telling you to go and bless Israel by sending money to Israel. What we want you to do is to bless Israel by blessing the soul, by absorbing this spirit into yourselves. By taking this spirit into yourselves. This is how you can bless Israel. So that's how the nations of the world will be blessed too, by taking the soul and the spirit into yourselves. And you can do it as Noahides. You don't have to be converted by circumcision and keeping all the laws to do this, because this is a spiritual thing. And you hold on to the example of the soul of Israel, which you have in your Gospels with Jesus of Nazareth. This is what you've got to hold on to. There's a perfect example of the soul of Israel for you. That's how you're going to bless Israel, is by blessing that soul that's described for you, not the state of Israel, which has had its soul ripped out, as decreed by the Board of Deputies, which is the leading Jewish body. So you've got the CJCUC. That's the way forward. Don't worry about condemning the actions and atrocities committed by Benjamin Netanyahu and his atheistic government, who are totally blaspheming Hashem, bringing shame upon the name of God, and using God's name for their own political purposes. Don't worry about condemning them. They do not represent Judaism. They do not represent Jews. They represent their own selfish interests, and Judaism and Jews condemn that. Don't worry about that. But don't turn your back on Judaism and say, oh, Judaism is evil and wicked because of the state of Israel. Don't confuse us and Judaism with the state of Israel. There's no relationship between us right now. Right now, the soul of the Jews has been ripped out of the state of Israel. It's been ripped out of the state of Israel. That's what's being said there. That's what the article's saying. It does. The soulless Judaism is Noahide Judaism. It's ripped out. It is soulless. It is soulless. So don't turn your back on the soul of Israel just because Israel has turned its back on the soul of Israel. And don't go around blessing Israel, the state of Israel, thinking that you are blessing the soul of Israel. You're not. That is a piece of a cursed land. It was accursed from the beginning, and it was given to us for a specific reason, to teach a specific lesson, and that time has sadly passed. Gog and Magog have surrounded the camp of God's people. They have taken control of the camp of God's people, and they have ripped the soul out. But fire will come down from heaven and consume them, and we can convert them with Noahide Judaism. Those people are not suitable to be called Jews anymore. It is much better for such secular people to be Noahides than to be lost forever into Gehinnom, which is where they're going because they have rejected the soul. So it's better for us to focus and make them into Noahides than to allow them to continue to call themselves Jews. This is not right. Judaism doesn't have anything good for such people. They need to repent. They need to come back. They need to come back to... They're following the ways of the Sadducees. They're following the ways of the Sadducees, the nationalism and the tribalism that the Sadducees promoted. They're not following the Pharisaical school of Beit Hillel, which is a pacifist school of halakha, which is what the Judaism of the past 2,000 years has been all about. They're not following that. And so they are apostate. They are Epicurus. And as Epicurus, there's only one thing which you can do to save the Epicurus Jew, and that is bring them Noahide Judaism, because they're too far away from Judaism, from Orthodox Judaism to help. And if you try to shove Orthodox Judaism down their throats, it doesn't work. This is what the Chabad approach was. Chabad thought, oh, let's just like some kind of make Judaism easy for them and shove that down their throats. It's going to help them. No, it didn't. It made them worse. It made them sick, and it made them destroy Judaism as we understand it. The only thing you can do with such people is treat them as Noahides. That's what you do with the lost sheep of the house of Israel. You treat them as Noahides. And then if they embrace Noahide Judaism, then they are saved. But if they don't embrace Noahide Judaism, then they're not saved. And how do you make them embrace Noahide Judaism? You take Noahide Judaism to the nations. You give it to everybody. And when the nations start knowing about Noahide Judaism better than these people who call themselves Jews, then they get jealous that the non-Jew knows better about Judaism than they do, and they adopt either full Orthodox Judaism or Noahide Judaism as well. And that is the method which has been promoted from the time that, the Song of Moses talks about this. They have angered me with their godlessness, so I will make them jealous with a people which is not a people. Noahides. There's no specific nation. Noahide nations, plural. It's a united mixed multitude of every language, nation, and tribe who come together on the fundamentals, and that their understanding of Judaism, their righteousness, therefore, surpasses that of the Pharisees. They know more about Noahide Judaism than even Beit Chabad does. They know even more about that, and that makes them jealous, and then they come back to normality. But we can't save them unless we spread the message to all nations. Hence, when Jesus of Nazareth said, I have not come except for the lost sheep of the house of Israel, then go and baptize all nations in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. What he's actually saying is, in order to save the lost sheep of the house of Israel, we have to take this mission to everybody. And so that's what I also try to do here. So I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you understood everything. And that if you didn't get the whole thing, then you rewind it and get it from the beginning, hopefully. And it'll make some kind of sense to you that there is no contradiction in this Holy Week story, but it is different from what the church has fed you. And you hold on to this from now on. You don't need the churches, but you do need Jesus, and you do need the Gospels, the New Testament, and you do need what he told you to do in remembrance of him, which is a Havdalah, which I'm always promoting on this channel. If you want to know more about it, send me a message. You can also send an email to me, redjudaism@gmail.com, if you would like a copy of Rabbi Harvey Oscar Falk's book, Jesus the Pharisee, which explains in detail how Jesus of Nazareth spread and promoted a Noahide mission, a mission for promoting Noahide Judaism, not a new religion called Christianity, not a new religion called Islam, but Noahide Judaism, and how to understand what Jesus was talking about a lot of the time when he talks about halakhic issues, which are glossed over by the churches who can't explain these things, how you can see Jesus as a promoter of this religion. In fact, as the bones of this religion, as the skeleton of this religion, the fundamental core principles. He is that archetype, and you can see him that way as the Jewish Messiah, the bones of the Jewish Messiah, the core of the Jewish soul, which has been given to the nations. We have talked about that, of course. Passover here, the Passover lamb is not for the nations, it's for the circumcision, but the bones of the Passover lamb are even for the dogs. So if dogs can have the bones, then can't the nations have the bones? Absolutely. So you get the bones of the Passover lamb, and that's how Jesus becomes your Passover lamb. The Passover lamb is Judaism, the bones are Noahide Judaism. So hold on to that. Jesus is Noahide Judaism. Write to me and ask me for the book. I will send you a copy for free. So God bless you all. Take care and have a blessed and holy week. Shalom. Bye-bye.